Some of y'all might get pissed off at me for making this video the way that I have, and that's okay. I understand where it comes from. This video is supposed to be an update. It's supposed to go over and give you information, but realistically, everything we're going to be taking a look at is all just speculation. It's all what media people are saying could be the case, and nothing's actually definitive, and there's only a few quotes in here that are actually worth talking about. But either way, today we're going over to the Montreal Canadiens and talking about what I'm going to say is their best player. Like, okay, Nick Suzuki is there. He's a very good player. Mike Matheson was really good to end off the year, but realistically, when it comes to points, when it comes to goals, there is one guy that I think should be at the top of the mountain when it comes to talent. And it doesn't take a genius to recognize that player is Cole Caufield. Let's have ourselves a conversation today about Caufield and his contract negotiations. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what a few TSN and Sportsnet people had to say about Caufield and his progression so far. So, part of the reason we're going over onto this topic is because we had ourselves an article published on Sportsnet the other day. This was from April 19th, so 2 days ago, published by Eric Engels. Canadiens' Cole Caufield appears willing to bet on himself on his next contract. Now, there's a video included of the Caufield interview that's referenced, but pretty much, if you go over to what Engels writes about when it comes to Caufield, he talks about this: I can only pretend to know what's going on through his mind as he enters the biggest offseason of his young career, and that's what I'm going to try to do, knowing that I can't be certain of anything. So, right away, there's a disclaimer as to whether or not this is all worth talking about. Last Friday, when I asked the 22-year-old what he thinks he's proven to himself about what kind of player he believes he can be in the best hockey league in the world, I was attempting to pry something out of him to help me understand how he's thinking about his next contract. And Caufield instead responded, I have not really played a full season yet, so I don't think I've proven anything. And that right there is a really interesting perspective, because if you go over to Caufield and his situation, we all know he's expiring at the end of the season. He will be an RFA, so there's going to be some negotiations to go on here. But the guy last season had 36 points and 26 goals in 46 games played. A very big improvement on the 43 points and 23 goals he had in 67 games in 21-22. Caufield had a very good scoring pace, and if you do the numbers here, 36 divided by 46 multiplied out by 82, Cole Caufield was on pace for a season of, 64 points, and if you do just the goals, he was on pace for about 46 goals in a full 82-game campaign. But of course, pace is just pace, and Caufield is using his games played number to justify why he hasn't really proven anything so far. It's an admirable point of view to take, mostly because Caufield is saying, hey, I need to do better. Sure, I scored goals, sure, I played really well, sure, I'm arguably the most talented goal scorer on this team, and one of the more underrated goal scorers in the NHL that's going to be one of the best in the next few years, but I need to prove myself. I haven't done that yet because I haven't played the games. Taken another way, though, and perhaps exactly how Caufield intended for it to be taken, the Wisconsinite could have been saying, I'm just getting started. I think there's a long way to go, but I like where I'm going, were the next words out of Caufield's mouth. Very weird way to say it, Eric Engels, my goodness. Every year, every level I've played at, the next year just keeps getting better. So that's kind of how I'm looking at things this summer, he concluded, and that certainly didn't make it sound like he was downplaying his prior achievements or unsure of what he'll be able to do moving forward. Caufield is confident without being cocky, and that too is worth something. That confidence has been evident in both his demeanor and his play through almost every day he has spent with the Canadiens, and it's a sought-after quality, especially in goal scorers. And so part of me is really interested as to what Caufield will be able to do next, assuming he does get those 82 games under his belt sometime soon. The guy needs the contract, so he'll most likely go to a bridge deal, just kind of throwing a guess out there. I think the guy might be getting a bridge deal just because of how he feels like he needs to prove himself and potentially get some more money down the line. And we also had ourselves another interview that I wanted to go over and look at too. This is the TSN 690 grab bag post by Blaze of Glory 72 from about an hour ago. Now, we've shouted out Blaze of Glory before on the channel, but what they do is they pretty much listen to all the audio hits on TSN and transcribe the heck out of it, just giving a whole bunch of summaries and allowing fans the opportunity to really absorb this content without having to spend a few 20 minutes or so listening to each of the audio hits. Now, I will leave a link in the description to the post itself, because there is a link in Blaze of Glory's post linking directly to the audio these quotes are taken from, but either way, what Blaze of Glory 72 refers to is a Darren Dreger hit on TSN 690 asking whether or not the Habs and Caufield are close to a deal. There's a conversation about the New York Rangers and Capo Caco Alexis Lafreniere, but this is where things get interesting. McKenna asks if Dreger has heard anything about the Caufield contract negotiations. Dreger says that as far as he's aware, there have not been a ton of discussions between the Canadiens and Caufield's camp, but his knowledge only goes up to near the end of the season, so that doesn't really mean much. Dreger does say that both parties want a contract to get done, so he doesn't foresee any major issues in this negotiation. So this is partly why I had that apology at the beginning. Hey, sorry for giving you an update that doesn't really have any updates. There's nothing of substance here. You then had yourselves Brian Wild, who had himself a hit on 690 as well. They talk about Caufield, and this is what is said. Joey starts the interview off by talking about Cole and how he didn't seem to be his usual chipper self in the season exit interviews. He wonders if this is due to the ongoing contract negotiations. Both he and Simon speculate that Caufield may be looking for a shorter-term deal to try to get a bigger deal later, while the Canadiens are looking for a longer-term, more cost-certain deal. Wild doesn't really agree, saying that Caufield seems very happy here in Montreal and could see him wanting to take a long-term deal. The issue likely is just the dollar amount. And that is another perspective as well. For Caufield and the way that he's played, I could understand if he wanted to go out there and say, hey, give him an 8x8, give him whatever Suzuki got, because if Caufield is signed on for that much, we know he's going to be that much better, and we know that contract is going to be a steal. But at the same time, it's like, okay, even if that may be the case, the sample size really is limited. Like, Caufield, in 3 seasons worth of games, not including the playoffs, has only played, how many games is that in the NHL? 123? I can understand why fans would want to do it, but I could understand as well why an organization wouldn't necessarily want to give an 8x8 deal or an 8x8.5 or an 8x9 even $1 million deal to a guy who has barely played over the span of 1 full season's worth of time in the regular season. I feel like Caufield is definitely good enough to justify that deal, and he'll likely do that in the next few years, but it's not guaranteed. Caufield scoring at a 40-goal pace is nice, but it's not really all too nice when you acknowledge he's only played half the year. So, for Caufield and the future, it is going to be interesting to see where these negotiations go. I feel like with the comment about him not having proven himself yet, it's more possible that he goes on like a short-term bridge deal, like 3 years, let's say $5.5 or $6 million. He maybe gets a 40-50 goal season in that span, and then in 2027 or whenever, that's when he signs a long-term deal at maybe a 9.5 or a 10 million AAV contract, assuming he has a season or two that justifies that cost. You know, it's kind of economics here. This is how it works. It's basic contract manipulation, I guess you could say. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Cole Caufield. The article that we had talked about, it's going to be linked in the description on Sportsnet. Also, the Reddit post is going to be linked as well. Shout out to Blaze of Glory 72 once more for always providing the good hits on TSN. But what are your opinions on Cole Caufield and the updates that we have? Technically, there wasn't an update. It was just kind of some insiders going out there and talking about the guy. But do you want to sign him on a bridge deal? Do you want to sign him long-term? Do you think it's appropriate to give somebody like this an 8-year, let's say $8.5 million AAV deal? Is that appropriate for a guy who has played the amount of time that Caufield has had? He's had success, but he's been very limited in terms of his availability. Does that impact whatever it is you're thinking about in regards to the negotiations? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.